Welcome to The Explainer. We're jumping right in today because we have some absolutely fascinating ground to cover. If you're a parent, a caregiver, or honestly just someone intrigued by human development, you already know that babies are basically tiny, adorable mysteries. But sometimes, those mysteries go way beyond the standard diaper changes and nap schedules. Today, we're going to uncover the hidden science behind some truly unusual and, let's be real, often exhausting baby behaviors. We are going to decode the gifted baby, separating what we casually observe from what the science actually tells us. So, let me ask you this. Have you ever caught your baby doing things that just leave you scratching your head? Like, do they stare intently at strangers as if they're literally scanning their soul? Or maybe they sleep way, way less than all the parenting books say they should, yet somehow they wake up the next morning completely fresh and ready to take on the world? If these specific, sometimes overwhelming traits sound familiar to you, you're definitely in the right place. Because today, science finally has an answer for you, and it's probably not at all what you think. Section 1. Spotting the gifted baby. The signs 99% of parents miss. Okay, let's dive into this. Look, every single baby is special, and it's totally natural for parents to think their little one is a genius. But psychologists tell us that gifted infants actually have brains that operate on an entirely different neurological level. And there's a huge trap so many parents fall into here. They see their baby acting differently and immediately assume, well, my baby's just weird, or shy, or maybe even hyperactive. They misinterpret these behaviors as negative problems. But the reality? Giftedness has very specific, scientifically measurable signs. What looks like awkwardness or hyperactivity to us is very often highly purposeful activity and intense observation. Now, according to the Queensland Association for Gifted and Talented Children, or QAGTC, there are a few advanced milestones that are pretty obvious. For instance, you might see early walking and speech, or a shockingly sophisticated vocabulary for their age. Some of these kids even teach themselves how to read by preschool. Or maybe they develop this all-consuming, awe-inspiring knowledge of incredibly narrow topics, like being able to flawlessly name 50 different species of dinosaurs at age 3. They have this massive thirst for knowledge and are just constantly driven to explore. But hey, those are the known milestones. Let's dig into the hidden signs. Section 2. Superpowered visual processing. Why they stare. Picture this scenario. Your baby enters a brand new room. Now, while the other babies might immediately start grabbing for toys, playing, or maybe even crying, your baby just sits there, completely quiet, their eyes deliberately scanning every single detail. The pictures on the wall, the ceiling fan, every new face. We typically assume this means our baby is scared, shy, or socially awkward, right? Like they're holding back. But researchers at Stanford University found that high IQ babies actually possess significantly faster visual processing speeds. They aren't paralyzed by fear at all. They are processing. Their brains are capturing the new scene in extreme detail and checking out all the implications before making a single move. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what's happening inside their heads. If you think about an average baby's visual processing, it's kind of like a basic point-and-shoot camera. It captures the general scene, the basic shapes, the overall layout of the room. But a gifted baby's brain, it works like a high-end DSLR camera. It is capturing every tiny detail with absolute perfect clarity. When they stare intensely at a new face, they are actively studying it and saving it to memory like a high-definition photograph. So it really isn't shyness, it's high-speed data collection. Section 3. The one trial learner. The truth about boredom. Let me know if this sounds familiar. Has your baby ever watched you do something totally complex and then immediately copied the exact action without any practice? Science actually has a name for this. It's called one-trial learning, and it's this incredibly rare cognitive ability to learn a brand new skill or concept after seeing it demonstrated just a single time. We're talking 0 repetition required. The neural connections in these babies' brains are forming at an astonishing, almost unbelievable rate. What takes an average infant's brain weeks to hardwire takes these babies merely days. To really put this into perspective, let's look at some raw data. Researchers at MIT actually quantified this phenomenon. They found that an average baby generally needs to see a new action or object about 6 to 8 times before they truly learn and internalize it. High IQ babies, they only need to see it 1 or 2 times. That's it. Their brains are just wildly efficient at locking in new information on the spot. But here's the catch. This incredible efficiency creates a massive misunderstanding for caregivers. A parent might watch their child get totally bored with a brand new toy in 5 minutes and think, my kid just won't stick to anything. But in reality, the brain hasn't lost focus at all. It has completely mastered the task. They figured that toy out in record time, and now their highly active brain is fiercely demanding the next challenge. Boredom is actually one of the most common, yet most frequently ignored signs of a gifted baby. Section 4. Complex emotions and empathy. The intense expressions. Now, we know many gifted kids use their verbal abilities early and often, basically demanding answers to why and how, until we parents are absolutely exhausted. But it's not just the verbal questions you have to look out for, it's the nonverbal expressions. You know the exact look I'm talking about. It's that sharp, uncomfortable face that practically screams, "I heard you, I understood you, and I completely disagree." It's an expression so intense, so knowing, that it can genuinely make adults feel a little uncomfortable. Because honestly, it feels like this tiny baby is reading your innermost intentions. And the crazy thing is, they kind of are reading your intentions. This all stems from what psychologists call theory of mind. It's essentially the ability to, well, read another person's mind, to understand exactly what someone else is thinking and feeling in a given moment. This is the very foundation of empathy and social awareness, and it allows these young children to see right through adult hypocrisy and inconsistency at an astonishingly early age. Check out this timeline based on Yale University research because it's pretty mind-blowing. An average baby typically develops this theory of mind around 3 to 4 years of age, but a gifted baby, they're developing it between 18 months and 2 years old. They are literally years ahead emotionally and cognitively, and that is exactly why they ask so many piercing questions and why their eyes seem to hold so much weight. They're reading you so much better than you realize. But of course, this early emotional development comes with a heavy price, something the QAGTC calls the burden of empathy. Because they feel things so deeply and so early, general anger or even mild criticism is taken incredibly personally. You might see them suffering intensely right alongside an injured animal or a starving character they saw on TV. And when they get overloaded with all these heavy impressions, they can easily withdraw and become super introverted. We're talking about toddlers developing early, profound concerns for massive adult issues like wars, pollution, and injustice. They also grasp the stark difference between reality and fantasy very early on, which, leads to those incredibly awkward and profound questions about death or the reality of Santa Claus long before parents are even remotely ready to have those conversations.
Section 5. The uneven development trap. The gap between brain and body.
So, this brings us to what is arguably the single most frustrating part of raising a gifted child. It's this concept called uneven development. Essentially, it's a massive disconnect between a child's highly advanced intellectual capacity and their perfectly normal physical or emotional maturity. And parents get completely trapped here. Because a child can speak like an adult and reason like an adult, we automatically, almost subconsciously, expect them to have the emotional regulation of an adult. But they don't. Just look at this stark contrast. In their intellectual output, they might be discussing these near-adult, wildly abstract concepts like the future, space, or morality. But then, in their emotional reality, 10 minutes after that incredibly deep conversation, they're on the floor whining over a tiny scratch, desperately needing to be comforted exactly like the 4-year-old they actually are. It's no wonder parents often feel like they are dealing with two completely different children housed in the exact same body. And sadly, this uneven development leads directly to the dark side of early logic. Because their brains easily visualize highly complex outcomes, they very often suffer from extreme perfectionism and really destructive self-criticism. They become intensely frustrated when their physical manual dexterity lags behind their intellectual expectations. Their hands literally can't build what their mind sees, and this can cause them to just completely refuse to try new things out of a paralyzing fear of failure. Furthermore, their advanced reasoning can actually be weaponized. They might constantly argue, relentlessly try to outsmart adults, and tragically, they can discover the distinct advantages of manipulation, lying, and stealing at a very, very early age.
Section 6. Nurturing the gifted mind. What parents must do.
So, with all this intense cognitive processing and uneven development happening all at once, how do we actually support these unique minds? Caregivers play a monumental role here. First off, we have to accommodate their individuality. The QAGTC highly advises parents to expect a remarkably reduced need for sleep. Remember, it is purposeful activity happening in that brain, not hyperactivity. You also need to allow them plenty of time for solitude and unstructured creativity. Resist the urge to constantly organize their day. And understand that they may genuinely feel unconventional or weird because their advanced humor and vocabulary just aren't understood by kids their own age. So support their natural preference to associate with older children or adults who can actually meet them on their intellectual level. And when it comes to guiding them, here are 3 critical steps. 1. You absolutely must apply normal discipline. It is actually terrifying for a young child to realize they can successfully manipulate adults. Consistent boundaries make them feel safe and secure. 2. Lend a physical hand. When their manual dexterity fails to meet their mental visions, step in. Help them construct their projects so they don't get frustrated and give up. 3. Help them set realistic standards. You have to actively guide them to combat that destructive perfectionism. Show them, by example, that making mistakes isn't just okay, it's a required part of learning. We have covered some incredible ground today in this explainer, diving deep into the hidden, fast-paced, and intensely empathetic world of the gifted baby. But as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on. If a toddler can outsmart us and simultaneously feel the entire emotional weight of the world on their tiny shoulders, are we truly preparing them for that world? Or are we all just desperately trying to keep up? Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you in the next explainer.